Okay, I didn't have volume. Apparently now we we have it. I'm gonna play
Because they're in the hallway.
catch it up.
All right, let's bring them in.
All right, for the jury.
Yes.
All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, and state, I believe you were still directing the witness.
I guess so. Mr. Rodriguez, so the last thing that I think that you had mentioned yesterday is that you and your wife had been driving north on 281 and she had to call 911. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And why did she have to call 911?
I was driving, so I told her to call 911.
Well, what made you, while you were driving, what made you think I have to call 911?
At the time, before she called 911, we were stopped in traffic, and then we saw the truck speed past us, and then hit the car stalled in traffic.
So,
And then I told my wife, "You need to call 911."
so let's break that
Sir, I'm
down.
gonna have to ask you, please keep your voice up so that the members of the jury can hear, the court reporter can hear, and I can hear, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Rodriguez, let's break that down. So, where were you stuck in traffic? You remember?
281 heading north near the TCP Parkway exit.
And you said that you saw a truck. Do you remember what color truck?
Either like a dark blue truck,
And what drew your attention to the truck?
the high rated speed.
Now, where were you when you saw the truck?
I was in my vehicle on the right lane. I think at the time it was a 2-lane highway, so I was on the far right. The truck was on the left lane.
And so, did the truck go past you?
Yes,
And so, as it went past you, what did you do?
I just watched it because, like I said, we were stalled in traffic, and we were just waiting there trying to figure out what was going on. And the next thing you see, this truck behind you and on the side of you, driving at a high rate of speed, and then you can see it collide with vehicles in the front,
So
stalled in traffic.
So, did you actually see the truck hit the vehicles?
No, just because the way the highway was, it was 2 lanes. Majority of the traffic was on the right. It went down and it kind of curved, so you can't really see the vehicle passing on the left, but you can see the vehicle's roofs from the distance. So like I said, we were stalled in traffic, just waiting there, waiting for traffic to continue. And you see just the form lines of the vehicles, the speeding truck passing us, and it kind of disappears, but you can see the top of the vehicles in the highway. And then they're all lined up, and then you hear a big bang, and you see the shuffle of the vehicles.
Now, when you saw this, so you're telling the jury that you were actually on the highway, or were you off the highway when you saw this?
On the highway.
And you could only see the tops of the vehicles. How far away were you?
50 yards, 75 yards.
And just point out to the jury, where generally were you seeing it? Was it up ahead? Was it up here? Where exactly?
Yeah, in the front of you, right in front. Like I said, we're on a 2-way highway, 2-lane highway. You see the trucks. There was like an accident at the next light. At the time, there was a light there. You couldn't see the police vehicle that was at the other accident. You could just see the flashing lights against the building. I believe it was like a CVS at the time. And we're just, like I said, we're just following traffic. You see a line of vehicles. We're just sitting there waiting, trying to figure out what's going on. And you see the truck pass us. Like I said, you see the dishevel of lined up vehicles.
And how fast would you say this truck was going?
80 plus.
Judge, I'm going to object to speculation.
All right, lay the foundation.
So, was
Can I take the witness on board, Donna, very briefly?
Yes,
Madam Chief Your Honor?
yes, and the voir dire purpose is for speeding.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, you may proceed.
Hi, Mr. Rodriguez, how you doing?
Good.
We've not had an opportunity to meet. My name's Gary Hillier. I'm one of the attorneys that represents Mr. Castro. I've just got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
So the prosecutor asked you about some speed questions of your perceptions on Mr. Castro's vehicle. Can I ask you what you do for a living, sir?
I'm a software engineer for the Union Pacific Railroad.
Have you had any training or experience in estimating the speed of moving vehicles?
No.
So it would be fair to say that any estimations of speed, because you were stationary,
Yes, sir.
So you weren't driving your car, looking at your speedometer. For example, you were doing 70, someone went past you.
Correct.
They would call that tracking. You had no other way other than your common sense and experience to say this person was traveling fast.
Correct.
So you can't say with any certainty to this jury what speed anyone was doing, right?
I can't say with certainty that they were speeding.
Well, what speed someone was doing. You say it looked fast.
Yes.
Right. But you can't give a speed without it being a complete guess, right?
Yes, I can't give you the exact speed.
Yeah, so it'd be a guess if you gave an exact speed.
Sorry, what was the question?
I can't remember. I think I said it would be a guess. If you, based on your training experience, if you were to give a speed number to the vehicle that you're discussing, it would be just a guess.
I
Yes.
don't,
Thank you.
I don't condone what's going on in the chat.
All right, stay.
What made you call 911?
The high rate of speed and the sound of the collision and like the disheveling of the vehicles. If you didn't see the vehicles dishevel, you think it'd be just like a fender bender. Like I said, there was already either a police officer or fire or EMS, maybe 200 yards in front of us. So there's already someone there. But like I said, I saw the high rate of speed. I heard the loud collision and then the disheveling of the vehicles. And then knew it was an accident. And I told my wife, you need to call 911, which was an accident.
And just to clarify, were you exiting when you saw this? Where were you?
I was in the right lane of the highway and we were just sitting in traffic, just trying to figure out what was going on.
Right, but what I'm asking, so were you on the highway or were you trying to exit? Where exactly?
I was on the highway.
Pass the witness.
Defense,
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Rodriguez, I've got a few questions for you, okay, about the testimony you just gave to the
Yes, sir.
prosecution. So, on the night, it was the 22nd of August, July of 22, right?
I don't remember the name.
The night that we're talking about, is the same.
This is
You were driving back north on 281 with your wife.
wife and my 2 kids.
Okay, with your 2 kids as well. You were sat on the highway. So I want to get it right. You were sat on the highway on 281
Yes,
and you were stuck in traffic.
yes.
And I think that you said, how long have you been?
How long had I been sitting in traffic?
Yeah,
5-10 minutes maybe.
5-10 minutes, and it was stationary.
Yes, completely.
Yeah, so completely stationary. You're not moving on and off. And at this time, I believe you said something along the lines of because 281 was under construction back then, right?
Yes.
It probably still is a little bit now, but that part of 281, are you familiar with that part of 281?
Oh yeah, I live off of 281. I use that highway all the time.
So it was undergoing a lot of construction, and the highway, it'd be fair to say that up ahead was getting channeled off onto the access road. Is that right?
Yes,
Because I think you said that you could see, you knew that there was an accident ahead, but you couldn't see any police cars, right?
correct,
But you could see that there was light reflecting off of a CVS. Is that right?
correct.
Like flashing lights. And now,
Red and blue lights flashing in the distance.
and that was in the distance. So, but that's not actually on the highway itself, right? That you're on the highway, which is, it's kind of elevated at that point, right?
Where the lights were reflecting off the building, yes, that was elevated and that wasn't on the highway.
Yeah, so so that's in the distance on the right-hand side where you're seeing the lights. You're not seeing the lights on the highway because if I'm correct in what you said, is that you were however far behind. You said that when you saw the truck come past you on the left-hand side?
On my left-hand side.
Yeah, because you're in the right-hand lane. You saw the truck come past you at high rate speed. We can't see at high rate speed, but you couldn't see the vehicle. You could only see the roofs of the vehicles that he hit.
Correct.
So you said, so put yourself back there, like you just said, he came past you and you couldn't see the collision because the road kind of went, there was like a slope and a slight dip.
Correct.
So, but you see, the car probably driven by Mr. Castro goes over the hill and you can't see the point of collision because you can only see the roofs of those vehicles over that hill.
Correct.
So would it be fair to say that you're aware, and how far back estimate do you think you were from that?
50 yards.
50 yards, and you were there at the scene and you saw this with your own eyes,
Correct.
but from the point of impact was slightly over the crest.
Sliding over the crest, no, because maybe 50 yards behind us is the top of the highway. So behind us, you're at the peak of 281, and then you're coming down. And then from 50 yards behind us towards the intersection where the CVS was, it's all going downhill.
But wait, where you start, I'm just trying to cover the testimony, and I'm not,
Yes, sir.
That you said, because you said earlier, you could only see the roofs of vehicles
Correct.
that he hit. You didn't see the impact, you just saw the roofs of them and then the vehicles moving.
Correct.
I just got no further questions, just pass with this.
Nothing from the state.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse.
Yeah, we've got no objection.
All right, the rule has been invoked. That means you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state or the defense. Do you understand? All right, you may step down. State, call your next witness.
Paul Store Rodriguez.
Well, that was a fast witness, especially with it sped up. I should have time delayed, done this at speed the whole time.
All right, could you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that everyone can hear. Okay. If you'll state your name for the record.
Dora Rodriguez.
All right, state.
Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm gonna get right into it. I'm gonna propose reports from March State's exhibit number 81. Have you listened to the CD?
Yes.
And how do you know you listened to it?
You played it?
Did you ever mark the CD?
Yes, I signed it.
And is the audio call that's on the CD, is it a true and accurate depiction of the 911 call you made while you and your husband were driving on 281?
Yes.
Has it been altered in any way?
No.
Your Honor, state would offer state's exhibit number 81.
Objection.
All right, state's exhibit number 81 is admitted without objection.
Permission to publish, Judge.
Granted.
I do believe that there's an accident, so the traffic is stopped at 281 North by TTC Parkway, and I guess the truck didn't notice, and he just slammed into a bunch of cars.
So you're at the CCC Parkway right now?
Yes, yes.
Is it going like, BJ in the city?
Yes, it's on highway, he just smashed into a bunch of cars.
Is it on, where you on the highway you're in?
On 281, the highway.
So not on CCC, but on US Cleveland?
Yes, on 281 North,
Is it the crossroad of CCC?
yes.
Okay.
So they have, they're already, people there, I think there was already a crash, and then a bunch of people stopped, and then somebody else was going, and didn't notice that there's a second crash.
So there's two crashes in the same area?
Yeah, because there was like tow trucks taking care of the police doors for the first crash, and so everyone was at a halt, and then somebody else just crashed into a bunch of cars.
So someone didn't notice that there was an accident in the front and they hit somebody?
Yeah. So there was a line waiting for it, and he just smashed into a bunch of cars.
You know, is the car smoking or on fire?
I don't know, we laughed, we just kind of saw it.
And was it flipped over or no?
I don't know, I just know that when he ran into the car, he saw turn.
So he hit multiple cars?
At least one car.
Okay, they were the ones waiting in the line?
Yeah, the people waiting in the line were hit by that truck.
Okay. All right, I'll send, let officers know. Do you want to be contact officers?
No,
Oh, I'll let them know now.
thank you.
Yeah.
Pass the witness.
Yes.
Hi, Ms. Rodriguez.
Hello.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. My name's Gary. I've got a couple of questions to ask you about that night. So you're traveling back home via 281,
Yes.
and you've been out with your husband and your two children. Right?
Yes,
And you've actually been asleep in the car, is that right?
that's correct.
And so would it be correct to say that your husband you were passenger seat, right? Passenger.
Yes,
And your husband was driving,
yes,
and your husband's Jonathan,
yes.
and Jonathan kind of woke you up.
No, I'm trying to remember, but the change in speed, because he was going slower, also kind of woke me up a little. And then I don't remember if he like tapped me or not.
All right, I'm-
I can't recall that.
Yeah, but so I'm not done here.
Oh, okay.
Your husband-
I don't recall that.
You've woken up, you've been asleep and you've woken up because you didn't actually see the crash.
No.
You're just talking about it with your husband.
Yes,
And I think that voice that we could hear on the 911 call was your husband.
that's correct.
And I think that he was in a better position to see stuff,
Yes,
and he was relaying much of that information to you.
yes,
So you didn't actually, you were there, you phoned 911,
yes.
but you didn't see anything.
I didn't really see anything.
And so would it be fair to say that the accident had happened by the time you called?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. I've got no further questions. Judge. Pass the witness.
Nothing to say, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused?
Excuse.
No objection.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means, you're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. Do you understand?
I understand.
All right.
Boom.
State, call your next witness.
Take calls, Paul Martinez.
Or the Explorer Speedy Gonzalez, all in one. She made sense. Spit it out. Next witness.
Deputy Laura.
She may be the greatest witness of all time.
I'll put you in charge of that.
She literally, honestly said what she thought and then left.
Can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, you can lower your hand, have a seat. Please keep your voice up so that members of the jury and the court reporter can hear you. If you'll state your name for the record.
Paul Andrew Martinez. Paul Andrew Martinez.
All right, state.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Martinez, thank you for coming in today. I'm gonna jump right in. Time is always of essence, right? The fact is, on July 22nd, 2022, were you employed at HEB?
Yes,
And to this day, are you still employed at HEB?
yes.
And just real quick, before we get into trouble, make sure you listen to the end of my question and then answer it,
Okay.
because the court reporter is gonna get very upset.
Okay.
And I'm trying not to upset her, okay? So, just make sure I finish, and then you can start, and I'll make sure I try to do the same. So you still work at HEB to this day?
Yes.
And what in 2022 and to this day, what do you do for HEB?
Deliver groceries to the stores.
And I'm going to show you where it's been marked state exhibit number 85.
Okay.
Whose truck is that?
This truck I was driving that night.
Oh, I guess I asked whose truck. It's HEB's truck.
Yeah,
but it-
actually, yes,
You drove it, right?
yes, I
It's the
drove
one
it.
you drove that night?
Yes.
And it's a fair and accurate depiction of pretty much the scene that night. Is that right?
Yes,
In fact, your truck is at the spot where it stopped when the accident happened?
yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to enter into evidence state exhibit number 85. I have tendered for defense or any objections.
No objection, Judge.
All right, state's exhibit 85 is admitted without objection.
Good, yeah, publish it.
Yes.
Now, just looking at that truck, I guess this is what we call an 18-wheeler, is that right?
Yes,
I guess most people call it that. I mean, what do you call it?
combination, 18-wheeler, most people.
All right. So this is the truck you were driving that night, is that right?
Yes,
And actually, I'm sorry, I'm gonna show you what's been marked state exhibit number 82. You recognize this?
yes.
And is this also, well, one, you recognize it, and two, does it show your truck at the scene?
My truck with the trailer. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, you're right. This is the trailer.
yes,
This is the back part of
Yes.
what you're hauling. Is that right?
yes,
But you were driving the truck that was attached to this trailer. Is that right?
yes.
All right. And Your Honor, this time the state would like to enter state exhibit number 82.
No objection, Judge.
All right, 82 is admitted without objection.
Judge, we got our overhead, I think, working.
Okay.
And let's see if it's actually working. There we go. State exhibit number 82 is up there on the screen. That's what your truck looked like that actual night. Is that right?
Yes,
With the lights and the writing and everything on it. Is that right?
yes,
And around a little after 2 or around 2 a.m. or so, on July 22nd, 2022, when you were driving your truck, what highway were you on?
281, going northbound.
Northbound on 31. Do you know a pop street that was at or near?
I know it's past that, Evans Road, where they built that new, via parking It was on my left-hand side.
There's a big via parking
Yes.
structure there, parking lot where you
Yes.
park, okay.
Yes.
And you were near that, but you were going north on 281. And what brought your truck to a stop?
There was an accident ahead of us. A lot of cars
Well,
weren't moving, yeah. Oh, they weren't moving, so yeah.
I'll try to make sure I
Okay.
don't talk as fast. Well, let me ask you this. You said there was an accident up ahead. When you first stopped, did you know there was an accident up ahead?
I just saw the red and blue lights. Yeah, cop lights.
And did you see anything other than the red and blue lights? For instance, did you see vehicles?
Involved in the accident or just
No,
in
just,
front of me? Yeah. Cars that were stopped because the accident, we weren't moving.
and so were there cars in front of you
Yes,
and were there cars in back of you?
yes. When I came to a complete stop, yes.
And I think you already said this, but I just want to clarify. Were you just driving very slowly, like very slow, or were you at a dead stop?
Yeah, dead stop.
And what we're looking at here, state exhibit number 82 and also state exhibit number 85. Is that where your truck was stopped at?
No, a little further back.
A little
Further
further
back,
back? How much further back?
yeah. About a few cars,
3 cars?
4 or 5 cars, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit here, but the truck that came to rest next to your vehicle.
Mhm.
You see it and state exhibit number 85.
Yes,
Can you point it out, please? And you're pointing to the back part of the trailer, behind the trailer, is that right?
yes.
And where was that truck when the actual crash ended? Where was that truck at?
Where it's at, yeah, there,
Where-
yes.
But
Once it came to the complete stop, he didn't move anymore.
it did not move any longer.
No.
But you stated that your truck moved a little bit.
When I saw the truck coming towards me, we're moving, where the cars were. I mean, we're turning around the other opposite way. Okay, so they, okay,
Let's talk about your truck.
okay, you can hear me?
All right, so this is what we're gonna do. All right, I need you to keep your voice up
Okay.
because the court reporter can't hear what you're saying.
Okay.
And I know it's easy that people start getting into a conversational mode,
Mhm.
but you're gonna have to wait till the question is finished. And the easiest way to know a question is finished, once it's asked, don't answer immediately, just pause a little bit and then answer, okay? All right.
All right. What my question was, is that you stated just earlier that your truck moved forward just a little bit.
Yes,
And this other truck, that's the wreck truck behind your trailer. It moved away from that truck, is that correct? Let me rephrase, I would
Yeah,
know that question.
okay.
Was this truck that was wrecked closer to your tractor trailer?
yes,
Okay.
Yes.
I think I was just asking some confusing questions for you. Now, when you were at a dead stop, I believe you already stated there's vehicles around you, in front of you, and in back of you. You stated something just earlier that I said we get to that. You stated that something about U-turns or reversing of vehicles. Explain to the jury what you saw that night.
a lot of people didn't want to wait, I guess for the accident to clear up, so they started turning around, going the opposite way.
And you stated they didn't want to wait. You're guessing at that, is that right?
Yeah, several cars did that.
And why did they not want to, I mean, I'm not asking you what they were thinking, but you're saying they're turning around because of why?
I'm thinking because they don't want to wait for the accident to clear, because they were there for a while already.
Speaking of, how long had you been there before the actual accident happened behind you?
I would say 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's
10, 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Is
while I was waiting, yes, complete stop.
I mean, and now you're guessing 10 to 20 minutes is quite big difference of time, is that right?
Yes,
So you can't quite remember how long.
no.
And so tell me about the actual crash. What brought your attention to the crash that happened behind you first?
I just heard the noise.
What,
That's
was,
all I heard, noise.
what did that noise sound like?
Just something hitting maybe another vehicle or the wall. That's all I heard.
And speaking of that, you're a truck driver, you do for a living, and you've done it for a number of years, is that right?
Yes,
Do you come upon accidents or around accidents quite often?
all the time, almost every night.
Almost every night that you
Yes.
drive.
Yes,
So you're familiar with coming upon a scene and you sometimes stop at those scenes, is that correct?
usually when I see it, it had already happened. There's already officers there already.
So this particular night, does this one stick out in your head because you actually had to stay at the scene?
Yes.
Now, you said that the first thing that brought you attention to the crash behind you was that you heard the crash. Did you end up seeing anything of the crash when you were still in your truck?
No,
Did you see any vehicles that were involved in the crash?
just the one that put in front of me on my right side. That was the only one.
If you look at state exhibit number 82 on the screen in front of you, is that the vehicle you're speaking of?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked state exhibit number 70. Pretty good evidence. Is that the vehicle that you're mentioning that was in front of your vehicle?
Yes.
And that's the Volkswagen, the blue Volkswagen?
Yes.
And so
Good argument for the
when you
state.
saw, did you see that vehicle moving or did you see it after it had stopped?
No, I saw him moving. He was on my left side and then on my right side.
That's on your right side.
Yes, when it came to a complete stop, yes.
And if you know, do you know where it came from?
No,
And then, of course, what about the truck that is in state exhibit to your left right now? The truck that's in state exhibit number 85. That truck that came to rest near your trailer. Did you see that truck moving at all?
just, yeah, I was coming towards the trailer.
And explain to the jury what you saw that night.
Just when I heard the accident, the noise, looked in my mirror, where I see this one here, my left side, ended up resting my right side, and then that's when I heard the other vehicle crash with a noise, and then I looked in my mirror and I see him coming this way on my left side, and that's when he came to complete stop.
Now, after you saw this happen, you heard it happen, and then you saw these vehicles come to arrest. What did you do? Did you stay in your truck or did you get out of your truck?
Got out of my truck.
And what did you do?
I went up to the person on this one here, the black truck. One, because he was okay, because the truck looked, his pickup, and I went up to him and see if he was okay. I asked him if he was okay.
And did you talk to him?
Yes,
And were you the first person to arrive there or, sorry, go ahead.
yes, I was.
And so officers had not arrived at the scene yet?
No,
And what did that individual tell you?
said he was okay. He was okay.
And where was he located at?
On the driver's side,
It was the driver's seat?
yes.
And did you stay at his vehicle or what did you do at that point?
No, then I went to check on the other person.
And you're saying the other person, state exhibit number 70 is on the screen and that's the
Yes.
first?
Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah.
State exhibit number 70 is, you're speaking of the individual that was driving that vehicle.
Yes,
And did you go to that individual and speak with him?
he had gone off his car already, so I went to go see if he was okay.
And you had a conversation with him?
Very little.
Very little,
No.
okay. And after speaking with him, what did you do then?
Well, before I went to the truck, when I got out of my tractor to go check on him, that's when I called 911, and because nobody knew what had happened because they were at the other scene. So I spoke to dispatcher, told him what happened. And that's when I went to go check on him and in this car. After that, that's when the officers, I guess from that accident, they were running towards the accident. So
Okay, so you say that the officers were running up to the scene where you were at.
yes,
And did they speak with you at that scene when they arrived?
I believe one officer. I can't really remember.
And then the officers are arriving at the scene, assessing, they were moving about the scene, is that correct?
Yes,
I'm gonna show you what's been marked state exhibit number 71. Right here. Did you ever see this vehicle?
no,
That night, did you ever see that vehicle?
no,
I'm not asking about if it was during the crash, I'm saying after the crash.
no,
Do you see this in the background?
yes,
Is that, whose truck is that?
Yeah. My tractor trailer. Yeah.
Okay, so did you ever walk down to this, all the way down to this vehicle?
No,
Where did you stay at?
I don't here, but in the wall on this side.
So you stayed up by your tractor trailer, is that correct? You never walked around the area?
No,
I'll show you what's been marked state exhibit number 76. Do you recall seeing this photo?
oh, yes,
And this photo is already in evidence. And were you able to look at the scene and tell me what is in front of you right here?
cars,
Cars?
Mhm.
And is that the way it looked that night?
yes,
And this is a construction zone, is that right?
Yes,
And in fact, it says a little sign right here. What does it say right there?
45 miles an hour,
And what does it say above it?
work zone.
Work zone. Now, right after very soon after the accident, was it sort of chaotic and just sort of everything sort of moving pretty quick with the officers running around?
Yes, I believe so.
And did you ever speak with the individual that was driving that pickup truck again?
Just when I first got off the tractor.
And did you ever let that individual borrow anything from you?
My cell phone?
He borrowed your cell phone?
Yes,
And did you allow, what do you do with the cell phone?
No,
he made a phone call.
this is a truck
know who you
driver
made a
who
phone call
managed
to?
to stop
Maybe
and
to his
see,
wife?
see that there was a problem.
And do you recall what time that was at?
Right after the accident.
I'm going to show you what's been marked State Exhibit number 2. It's going to be on the screen in front of you. We're going to play it at 2:36:17.
Okay. So. Yeah, it's a problem. You got the phone? Yeah, you got the license on you?
That's the individual you let borrow your phone that night. Is that correct?
Yes,
And that's the individual that was driving that truck that's actually in that video right there. Is that correct?
yes.
And can you read the time stamp on there?
2:36.
2:36. And I mean, if I said this accident happened, so there's been some evidence that it happened at 2:21 or after, that would only be about 15 minutes after the actual accident. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever see this individual later?
No.
Well, I'm saying that night.
That night after the phone, I think back my phone. No, I didn't.
Well, how long did you stay at the scene?
I think like 4 or 5 hours.
4 or 5 hours? So you actually stayed at the scene,
Yes,
and the officers asked you to stay at the scene. Is that right?
yes.
And why were they asking you to stay at the scene?
To see if I was involved in the accident.
And so they were doing an investigation.
Yes,
And do you know about this vehicle that you said you never went and looked at, the one on the bottom there? Did you know what happened to that driver?
at the time.
Yeah.
No.
Do you know what happened to her now?
Yes,
Your Honor, we would object to hearsay. Anything that you learned at this point is with that.
I didn't ask him what.
That'll be overruled.
So then you said you stayed there 4 or 5 hours, so that would be 6 o'clock, almost, so 6 o'clock or so in the morning, is that right?
yes.
And did anybody else stay at the scene that was possibly involved in the crash here?
I don't think so.
Well, for instance, the individual that's in the video in front of you right now, say exhibit number 2, was that individual still at the scene, if you can recall?
I didn't see him anymore. No,
And then the individual that was in the Volkswagen, the blue Volkswagen, that's that you spoke with, do you recall if he was still at the scene?
he was there for a while.
And I want to ask you, after this accident right here, right behind you, did anybody else run into all these parked cars?
I didn't see anybody.
Okay, we'll pass it over to you.
Right, defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Martinez. I'm Jasmine Olguin. I'm one of Alexander Castro's attorneys. Just have a couple of questions. And I want to start off by kind of setting the scene for what it looked like before the accident. So one of the things that you mentioned is that you were waiting for about maybe 10 to 20 minutes before the accident.
More or less, yes.
And this was at a standstill.
Yes,
And during this time, your 18-wheeler was parked and you saw vehicles, some vehicles were turning around from the accident and they were going the other way on the highway.
yes,
So you were able to see some vehicles turning around, meaning that their headlights were going the opposite direction.
yes,
And this wasn't just one vehicle that you saw, these were multiple vehicles.
yes,
And you would agree that that's chaotic in a sense for drivers driving onto this highway.
yes,
So some of the vehicles are going one way, but you also saw some vehicles reversing from the line and trying to exit that way. Did you see that?
no,
I guess, did you see any vehicles that were in line, kind of just instead of completely turning their vehicle the other way, they were just reversing to get out?
No,
You don't remember seeing that? So you don't remember seeing some cars backing up all the way?
no,
And when you were driving, there was a point where you saw a wrong way driver. You saw their headlights coming towards your vehicle
yes,
and you started flashing your lights at them.
yes,
And you were afraid of seeing somebody coming head on towards you.
yes.
And that was a car that wasn't involved in this accident.
I don't know what kind of car it was.
So you're waiting there, and you don't see that this part of the highway is closed off in any sort of way.
It was closed off in the front to get into the highway.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, it was closed, to get onto the highway, that part was closed.
What do you mean by that?
Like from the frontage road to get on 281, yeah, it was blocked out there because of construction.
And what did the construction look like on that?
Where I was at,
Yes.
it was a 3-4 lane that was open.
And then it turned into 2 lane.
Yes,
And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm publishing what has been marked as State's Exhibit 76. Tell Mr. Martinez, what we see here is that this is your vehicle right here in this photograph.
yes,
And you would agree that the accident that took place happened behind you.
yes,
And do you know about how far behind you it was?
I don't know.
So it happened behind you. And as you can see from this photo, can you see it?
Yeah.
Is that this work zone sign, it says 45 miles per hour, that takes place kind of right where your trailer's at. So
Oh, where the sign's at?
this sign right here that
Mhm.
was pointed
I
out,
think so.
that
Carroll
sign
County.
is right next to your trailer. Maybe a
Yeah,
little
a
behind.
little behind, yes.
Okay, and that's kind of the warning sign that was given to drivers if there was a work zone up ahead.
Yes,
Putting down State's Exhibit 76. Mr. Martinez, I know you didn't see the accident, but you did see some part, as you described to us, when you looked at your mirror and kind of looked behind you.
yes,
And one of the things that you saw was what you know now to be Mr. Castro's truck.
yes,
And you saw that truck either flipping or spinning after impact.
yes.
You remember how many times you saw it either flip or spin?
I saw him spin, but I don't know how many times.
And can you describe to us what that looked like? Were his tires on the highway what you saw?
Yeah, it was on the highway.
So he wasn't airborne when you saw him.
No,
And then one of the reasons that you thought maybe this accident happened was because of the chaos from the wrong way drivers.
yes,
And at that time, you believed maybe that's what could have happened.
yes,
And we saw the Honda that you were asked about, and at no point in time did you see that vehicle.
no,
And at no point in time did anybody tell you about the condition of that driver at that time.
I heard that she was in bad shape, that's all I heard.
And at what point was that? Was that early on or towards the end of the night?
I guess kind of towards the end of the night.
So it'd be fair to say that while you were waiting and while you were talking to officers, you were not aware of what was ongoing.
No,
Any further questions, Your Honor? We pass the witness.
State.
You stated towards the end of the night, not knowing that the individual, and let me show you, this car that you did not see because you never walked down there, you didn't know the condition of it until later in the night, is that right?
yes,
And you never saw this vehicle at the scene,
no,
but you stayed there for 4 or 5 hours.
yes,
Now, also, I'm going to show you what's the mark state number 2. It's on the screen in front of you. And we're going to play it at 3:21:58. I noticed something in this that it's blinking. What is that?
oh, my blinkers, 4 ways,
Is that what they're called, 4 ways?
4 ways, yes. Hazard lights, yeah, I'm sorry. Anyway,
did you have those on before or after the accident or the crash that happened behind you?
Before?
So you had all these blinking lights on before that truck crashed out behind you?
Yes,
And I'm gonna show you what's been marked state exhibit number 83. You're talking about some distance before. And do you recognize that picture?
yes,
And does it show the scene that night?
yes,
And does it show the distance between your trailer and the truck?
yes,
And it shows that distance from your trailer to this big sign that's across the highway, is that right?
the distance, like how many feet from?
Well, not how many
Oh,
feet, but it shows that, in this photo.
Yes,
And it also shows the VW, the blue one that's off to the side of you, is that correct?
yes,
Your Honor, say what the ask you to indicate is number 83, will tender to defense for any objection.
We object to cumulative. This is almost identical to the photo that's already been entered.
If I could see it, please.
Yes, Your Honor. May I get the other photo?
Yes. All right. Defense's objection is overruled and states exhibit number 83 will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you, Judge. May I publish?
Yes.
Showing the jury what's been marked state exhibit number 83. So in this picture, it shows, we were talking about that distance that you sort of moved your truck up or truck and trailer up a little bit further after it happened. Is that distance we're speaking of right here?
yes,
And then I can see all these lights on your truck. Is that right?
yes,
Those are the lights that we saw in that body cam that you said were hazards or four ways that were blinking before the crash behind you happened. Is that right?
yes,
And also in this picture, you see this shadow here. And you see a pole right here. Can you see that?
yes,
Is that the sign here? That defense counsel mentioned in state exhibit number 76. It says 45 miles an hour work zone. That she said it was right next to your trailer.
yes,
Also, you mentioned things about a wrong way driver, and you saw headlights. And I failed to ask you earlier, was that wrong way driver on the lanes of the highway, or where was it located on the highway?
on the shoulder?
So it wasn't in the lane that you're driving in or the other lane that other people could drive in.
No,
It was on the shoulder. Do you remember which shoulder? To your right as you're driving or to the left as you're driving?
on the right side,
So in this photograph that's on the screen right now in front of you, state exhibit number 83, it would be to the right of that photograph, on the same side as that VW vehicle. Is that correct?
yes,
And we'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Free cross, Your Honor.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez, so, you said some one way or wrong way, I'm sorry, some wrong way drivers, you saw them go onto the shoulder and continue driving.
the first one was, he was on the shoulder.
Do you know if he continued on the shoulder? Were you able to look in your mirror and see if he kept going that way?
I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah.
What about the other wrong way drivers? Did you see where they were at? Were they also on the shoulder?
No, they were, when they turned around, they were on my left side.
So there was wrong way drivers coming from both sides of the lanes.
When I first, before the construction, I saw that one on my shoulder. And then, as we came to a complete stop, that's when they started turning around the opposite way, going towards my left side.
And how many vehicles would you say were turning around and going the other direction?
Could have been 5, 6, 7, quite a few.
And what we see here on States Exhibit 83, do you remember there being, I guess, how many feet away would you say that sign is behind your 18-wheeler? I'm not good with distance, but
Yeah, I can't really say, yeah. From pictures, it's different live.
And you don't remember that other vehicles were backing up on the highway that night?
No,
When you were on the highway, you were coming, did you come in from the ramp right before?
no,
So you came in onto the standstill, kind of a good distance away that you kept just going forward.
yes,
You didn't enter the highway right then and see that.
no,
And when you saw everything going on with the accident, or what, from what you could see, you believe that one of the reasons was this because of these wrong way drivers.
yes,
No further questions, Your Honor, we pass the witness.
No questions, please.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Excuse, Your Honor, please.
Excuse, Judge.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense until the case is concluded. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, you may step down. Thank you. David, who's your next witness?
Peter Stefano,
All right, how long do you anticipate?
he's a lane witness, Your Honor.
All right, let's bring in the next witness. And then, ladies and gentlemen, after this witness, I'll give you a brief break. Are you okay to continue? Okay.
Thanks.
I was thinking about this.
Hello.
I don't
Would you
know.
raise your right hand for me, please?
My question is,
Do you
does
solemnly
the,
swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
does the defense have an
All right, you can have a
expert or
seat. I'm gonna
something?
need you to make sure that you keep your voice up. So project so
That'll
that the
take
jurors
forever.
can hear and the court reporter can hear. If you'll state your name for the record.
If not, we
Peter
might finish this thing
Stefano.
today.
All right, just a little bit louder for me.
Peter Stefano.
Great. All right, state your witness. Thank you.
Stefano, is that how you say your last name?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's off the name, I know that. I'm just gonna see here. Yeah, there we go.
This is the.
I just want to make sure that everybody's able to hear you. This is a, this.
Okay, this is the one.
There's that right there, okay. All right, sir. Thank you for coming in today. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you some questions because we've met before, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And we had you come into the office to speak about a crash that actually you were involved in back on July 22nd, 2022. You recall that?
Yes, I do.
And so I want to talk about that crash today. And first, I'm going to show you on the screen in front of you to your right, state exhibit number 68. Do you remember that vehicle?
Yeah, I do.
And whose vehicle was that?
It's my Vic.
It looks like in pretty good condition right there. Is that right?
Yes,
I'm going to show you state exhibit number 69. Is that same vehicle?
yes, sir.
And then state exhibit number 70. Is that same vehicle?
Yes, sir.
So were you the only individual in that vehicle at the time?
Yes.
And will you tell the jury, where were you coming from that night?
I was coming back home from work.
So everybody sort of knows, it's been evidenced already that this is a little after 2 o'clock in the morning. So what time do you get off work?
I clocked out at 2 o'clock. Took Wurzbach, then 281 North. So it will take me about 25 minutes to be home.
So you sort of work the night shift, and where do you work at?
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm with the post office and I work at the plant at Perrin Vital.
So you deal with sorting mail, is that correct?
That's what we do there, yeah.
Thank you. So where were you headed that night?
I was heading home.
And do you recall what road is that you were headed down?
That's 281 North,
And
somewhere around it's an overpass Stone Oak Parkway.
and when you were driving down the road, did you notice anything?
Well, at some point, I noticed that there was a line forming up ahead of me for about half a mile probably. So I lined up behind the last vehicle.
And when you were driving up, you said you noticed a line forming, a line of, and I gotta be very technical here, a line of what forming up?
A line of vehicles.
And how did you notice that these vehicles were lining up?
They stopped and they had the last vehicle. It was a truck, 18-wheeler, had its emergency blinkers on.
And I want to show you another poster to your left now, of state exhibit number 70.
Do you recall seeing this photo before?
You showed me
Okay. And you said about an HEB truck, is that correct? The 18-wheeler?
18-wheeler, yeah.
And the vehicle behind that 18-wheeler, was that your vehicle?
I cannot confirm. It looks like, but I'm not used to look at the back of my vehicle. So
You're not used
it might be, it could be.
Let me ask you this, behind that 18-wheeler, and between you and the 18-wheeler, were there any other vehicles?
No, I was immediately after the 18-wheeler.
You're the only car, you're right behind the 18-wheeler. How
Yes.
far behind the 18-wheeler were you?
I think about 40 yards, something.
Oh, sweet
Quite a
Jesus.
big distance.
Quite a bit difference.
Just ask him,
And
could
so
it be
this
your
is
vehicle?
everybody on the highway sort of stopping, or are they slowing down, or is it a dead
It's
stop?
the same vehicle.
That's
Mr. Precise
That's
over there.
there was something at the front. I didn't know exactly whether that was another accident or some construction going on. Construction workers, they use that time of the day to move huge elements. I didn't know what was it.
So you live out 281, is that right?
I live pretty close to Timberwood, yes.
And so you're used to traveling,
know what you're
or you
referring
did,
to,
you
but I
used to
don't
travel
think
this,
so.
this 281 quite often, is that
She's
right?
been on several
Well,
times.
that was my normal route, not anymore.
Not anymore. This is because of this night,
Yes, sir.
She's about to be elected
But before this
prosecutor,
night
if I had
happened.
my guess.
you actually used to travel it quite often.
Every night.
And you mentioned construction. At that time, out on 281, was it under construction?
That part, yeah. You have the sign speed limit and it's orange. That's because of the construction right now.
Now, when you stopped behind this 18-wheeler, you mentioned that it had its lights on, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You said something about, I'm sorry, I can't, did you say emergency lights or what did you say?
Yeah, emergency lights, blinkers.
Did you have any other lights on other than your headlights and taillights?
I put my emergency lights too.
So you actually had your emergency lights on also,
When I would stop there.
and are you speaking of like the blinking lights?
Yeah.
And when you're waiting there in line at a dead stop, how long do you think you were waiting before your vehicle ended up like what we see in State Exhibit number 70 when something hit you? How long do you think you were waiting there?
I would say a couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes?
Yeah.
And so you came upon this stoppage or dead stop of all these vehicles. You came to a stop. You waited a few minutes and then you're hit from behind.
No, I heard a noise.
Okay,
I
tell the
heard-
jury what you heard.
I heard some kind of a noise. I cannot describe exactly, but it's kind of a compressed air or something. And I looked at the rear view and I saw a huge truck literally flying sideways towards me.
And you saw this truck coming towards you, flying, you said like flying,
No, it's airborne. It was
Airborne.
airborne, yeah.
and then what happened next?
And then the next thing I remember, my mouth was full with glass.
Mhm.
It's kind of powder, not that, but glass. I could feel it. And I got out of the car and called 911 immediately.
And airbags on your side and everything, you're talking about, did your airbags go off in your vehicle?
Those on the side, I guess some at the back, because it's a huge car, it has 3 rows. The third row was not deployed, of course, but it's a pretty long car, and I guess the back airbag was also deployed. But that's all. The airbag in the wheel, steering wheel was not deployed.
So the steering wheel was still intact,
The airbag,
the airbag.
yeah. Otherwise, when I tried to pull, it's a car that is started with.
I'm not
key,
sure she's conscious,
Not with a button.
and I don't blame her.
So I tried to pull the key, but it was blocked.
And so when you were hit, did you're at a dead stop, did your car travel forward?
I guess so.
Okay, because you don't know what happened.
I don't remember anything. It was just a split of a second.
And so your vehicle that you recall, just to be clear, was behind the 18-wheeler on the highway.
Yes, sir.
When you went within a lane.
Yeah.
And do you remember what lane you were in, the left lane or the right lane?
I
Right
think
lane.
he's
There,
in
there,
the blue suit far right.
there are 2 lanes and a shoulder,
The shoulder.
but nobody travels on the shoulder. Police or emergency responders. The truck in front of me was
probably
on the
did.
right lane and I was in the right lane. The left lane was free.
Now, do you recall any cars stopping behind you before the crash?
I saw a white car. White car, yes, ma'am. But later on, I didn't see it anymore. It might have turned around.
Now, you're saying you're in the right lane. What about the left lane? Was there a car stopped in the left lane or was that lane open? Do you recall?
There was nobody in the left lane,
Nobody in the left lane?
nobody.
And at the time of the crash, there was nobody in the left lane?
Nope.
You called 911, you stated,
Yes, sir.
and when you were on the phone with 911, I'm assuming, what did you were explaining to them what had happened?
I said that there is an accident at 281 North. And I asked for help because I was frightened.
And
I didn't know what my state was, what my state was exactly. Because I have heard of situations when your artery is punctured or fractured, you get out of the car, you sit on the side, and then you collapse and you're gone. So I asked for help.
so were you in fear for your physical safety
Yes, sir.
because of this crash?
Yeah.
And when you were on that phone with 911, did officers respond?
I mean, on the other side of the 911,
No, I'm sorry, bad question, I apologize. Did officers actually physically arrive at the scene
pretty fast,
pretty
pretty
fast?
fast, yeah.
And did those officers speak with you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, when you say officers, you mean police officers.
Yes, sir, I do. Police officers, yes, sir.
Yeah, because the first responders, the fire brigade, they came 2 hours later,
They came out later.
a lot later. But I guess the police officers, one of their tasks was to identify my state, and probably they thought I can wait.
And speaking of waiting for when the crash happened until you left the scene, do you recall how long it was roughly?
2.5 hours.
This crash happened around 2:20 a.m.
No, 2:15.
2:50, sorry, okay, 2:15. And what, do you recall what time you got home?
I can't tell you the exact time. I remember calling my wife at about 6 o'clock.
6 a.m.?
Yeah.
And is that after you got home?
The police officers were kind enough to drive me to my home.
They drove you to your house?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, did you speak to any of the other drivers that night that were there involved?
Yeah, the driver of the 18-wheeler was kind enough to ask me whether I'm okay, and he offered me water,
And actually,
but I had mine.
you had no water?
I had water. He offered me water, but I didn't take it. I had mine.
Sorry, I misunderstood you. I apologize. Is that the same individual? Did you see that individual, that 18-wheeler driver out in the hallway today?
Yeah.
And actually, he testified right before you. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Very technical. Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Let me ask you, did you ever see the other vehicles another vehicle that was involved in the crash? Particularly a truck. In particular, a truck. I'm going to show you what Smart City, and you can look at your screen right there, state exhibit number 22. Do you recall seeing that truck that night?
I saw it from the other side,
You saw it from the other side?
and I saw it when they took me. Well, the officers wanted me to stay where I was, closer to my car, and 2 hours later, they invited me to go back
where the firefighters were. And they checked all my vitals, but that was far behind. And on my way to that fire truck and back, I saw this. Yeah,
And in this picture, you can see in state exhibit number 22, it's behind that 18-wheeler. Is that right?
I'm sorry.
It's behind that 18-wheeler.
Yeah,
I'm also going to show you what's been marked state exhibit number.
but by the time I saw this truck, the officers relieved the 18-wheeler to go home.
Okay.
So there was no 18-wheeler by that time.
Okay, so if you direct your attention over here, state exhibit number 71. Did you ever see this vehicle?
Again, on my way from the fire brigade to my car to pick up some stuff and get into the police car. Yeah.
In fact, on this exhibit, can you look here and do you see your vehicle way up ahead
Yeah, it would be my vehicle.
up there? And then you also see that HEB 18-wheeler?
I didn't realize at the time that it was an HEB 18-wheeler. It looked a white truck. It looked like a white truck for me. I didn't notice it was an HEB.
Oh, you didn't notice that the HEB truck was a HEB truck?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I'm gonna ask you, do you recall any vehicles on the highway, either, well, one turning around and driving the opposite direction?
Yes.
And does that mean they turned around and their headlights were facing the opposite direction?
Yes.
And where were they located, in the lanes of traffic, or where were they located on the highway?
They would turn around and move in the opposite direction on the adjacent lane, on the left lane.
On the left side. So was it on the shoulder or within the lanes?
I cannot specify. It might be both.
Okay, but you remember seeing headlights going the opposite direction.
Oh, yeah.
And so if the ATV truck is in front of you, was it in that lane? Was it in your lane that you saw these headlights coming towards you?
No one was driving in my lane.
And did anybody drive in the left lane?
Yeah.
And, I mean, but the opposite direction?
Yeah.
So those headlights would be facing down the highway, further down the highway. So people driving towards you would see headlights coming towards them.
Well, they were very careful, but yet it was against all the rules, what they were doing. But they were very careful in driving pretty slowly.
And again, was it in the left lane or the right lane or the shoulders of the highway?
I was on the right lane. Those might have been on the left lane or on the shoulder. I cannot specify.
You can't remember?
No.
I mean, again, you were in a major crash that night, I understand. Now,
No, I'm sorry, sir. Those turning around was before the crash.
they what?
Before the crash.
Before the crash?
Yeah, they were turning around and going backwards before I got hit.
And did you see any vehicles actually putting on reverse lights or reversing out?
No.
No? Okay. Any other crashes happen after this crash that involved you after that? Did anybody run into y'all after this crash?
I was hit only once.
Okay, thank you. I know that you stated earlier that you don't drive this way anymore.
No.
Why is that?
Check the relevance, Jeff.
Relevance. What's the relevance?
Relevance is, Judge, that this is also an individual that night that came into contact with his truck, that contacted his vehicle, and the emotional toll that it took on this individual.
The objection will be sustained.
We'll pass it in, John.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Stepnoff. Then you're on the way approach very briefly.
Yes.
Mr. Stepnoff, there's been some questions about this picture. I want to, my name's Gary Hillier, by the way, if you can ask some questions, if that's okay. So that is marked as 76, I believe. This is a pretty good representation, sorry guys, of the scene, right? Is that correct?
It looks like
It's from behind.
Around. some of the elements look like.
Yeah, and so what, just, there was a lot of talk about what lanes people were in. So here is, you're in the middle lane.
There is no middle
There's no
lane,
middle lane. So what is this to your right?
shoulder.
This is the shoulder. And what's that to the left? Because there's a lot of talk about left lane, right lane. What is this one here?
My car, if this is my car and the truck are in the right lane, the left lane is the one adjacent to the right lane.
This is rough,
That clears it
but
up. So we've got the shoulder.
The
Yes, sir.
state's doing a good
The
job.
right lane.
Yeah.
And then the left lane.
Mhm.
So when you
Calling
said
all these
that- so
witnesses.
this is the, I think that you said that, thank you.
To say everyone else that night figured it out except this guy going
You said
91
that,
miles an hour.
There was, you said there was a line, and that's the line that was forming ahead of your vehicle, right? We can see that line there.
So there is a point to it.
And when you're right there, you said that the line had formed, it was about half a mile long already.
Maybe, yeah. That was a long line.
Yeah, it was a long line. I'm not asking you to commit to that, but it was a long line. I think you said earlier half a mile. And were you aware that that line of traffic had been caused by a wrong way driver coming up the wrong way on the off ramp?
No.
Okay. And how long did you say that you were stuck behind the tractor trailer, the HGV van truck?
Couple of minutes.
And while you were there, did you see any warning? Because you said that you weren't aware that there was an accident in front of you, right?
I said, I thought it's either an accident or a construction going on because the construction workers use this time of the day to move heavy elements.
Right, okay, thank you for clarifying that. So it could have been one or the other, because you're familiar with the location, there was lots of construction at the time.
Yeah.
But there was nothing that you saw on your arrival at this scene here when you stopped in that line of traffic that would tell you it was an accident.
No.
No, there were no police vehicles with red.
There were blinking lights, but construction workers very often use similar lights. Right? Not exactly the same, but pretty similar. I don't know what color is lacking when the construction workers are using. I think they don't use red, but they use blue or something like that.
Well, no, you didn't see any police cars.
But it's too far to see police cars.
So you couldn't see police cars.
I couldn't see a police car.
All right, so everyone, y'all need to stop talking over each other. I'm looking at the court reporter's records and y'all are talking over each other.
Sorry, Judge, I didn't mean to. You said that you saw before the accident, you said that you looked in your rearview mirror and you saw a white car behind you,
Yes, I did.
and that turned around and driven the other way,
I don't know.
but it wasn't there anymore.
It wasn't there anymore.
And the traffic was coming slowly, but driving towards you on that left lane, going back the other way on the highway.
By the time I stopped behind the 18-wheeler, there were no cars going backwards.
There
No
were none
cars
that
going,
way.
no.
So when,
I saw some cars turning around when I was approaching. But when I stopped there behind the 18-wheeler, there were no cars turning. I was the last car.
I've not, so wait till you finish. So you, as you were approaching the 18-wheeler, people were
Yeah.
reversing, not turning around and driving away.
Yeah.
But not after you stopped there.
Yeah.
And how long do you think that you were waiting in that line of traffic?
As I said, a couple of minutes.
Okay, Mr. Stefanoff, I'm very glad that you're okay and you're not hurt, and I've got no further questions, so thank you for your time.
Very
Appreciate it.
quickly, you didn't see any patrol cars or anything like that, as defense counsel was asking, but you stopped.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you repeat the question?
You didn't see patrol cars like a defense
Oh,
counsel,
patrol cars. No, I didn't see any patrol cars.
but you still stopped.
I stopped because there was a line.
Thank you. Thank you. No further questions.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused?
Please.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone except for attorneys for the state or the defense. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, is this witness excused?
Please, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you all a short break. And we're going to come back at 3:45. Is that enough time for everyone? Remember my rules. You're only to think about this case and listen when you're inside the courtroom. Does everyone understand? All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors.
Well, we were running a little behind, so I moved it forward. Apparently her estimate wasn't great. We'll pick back up in real time as soon as they come back.
Bro.
This is crazy.
Ma'am, are you a whore?
You're not a whore? Not a whore? You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
Sweet Jesus.
You're not a whore? Not a whore? You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
It gets worse.
There were drugs involved that were given to me that ended up being glue. Like I smoked some glue and stuff. I thought I was smoking crack.
Let's go.
You didn't say the cat jumped on his wiener, did you? Sit down and shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Cat jumped on his wiener. Cat jumped on his wiener. Shut up. Cat jumped on his wiener. Cat jumped on his wiener. Shut up. Cat jumped on his wiener. Cat jumped on his wiener. Shut up. Cat jumped on his wiener. Cat jumped on his wiener. Shut up.
Can you just let this go for once? For once? Once?
Okay, bad doing no.
I never want to hear it again.
You a whore?
Mr. Sharks,
Not a whore?
Mr. Sharks, Mr. Sharks, Mr. Sharks.
Everybody fucking dance.
You're not a whore? You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
You're not a whore? You're not a whore?
I never want to hear it again.
Now, if anybody thinks this is okay, I am in the wrong.
There is no schedule at Law Talk Nation. You can only pay, you get a notification. If you're lucky, it's a spicy fornication. It's another day on Law Talk with Mike. We got preacher on the dial, planning always make your chest smile. The pros say can't ever share a file. Defendants are always in denial. He was not driving, he's traveling. His reasons and facts are unraveling, unraveling. It's another day of Law Talk with Mike. Crossroom is always popping off. You have a failure appear and you scoff. Judge Simpson is never going soft. Webster is always showing heart. We are heading into that soft six summer. Did you miss the line? That's a bummer. The soft six never gets smarter than dumber. He's not the man, he doesn't need a number. He was not driving, he's traveling. His reasons and facts are unraveling, unraveling. It's another day of Law Talk with Mike. Courtroom is always popping off. You have a failure to appear and you scoff. Judge Simpson is never going soft.
Desperate.
Webster is always showing heart. We are heading into. There is no schedule at Law Talk Nation. You can only pay, you get a notification. If you're lucky, it's a spicy funny.
But Simpson will tell you that being alone, we just have one question: are you a hoe? Mr. Shots, oh Mrs. Shots, oh where did you go? We have questions like on the weekends, do you work selling burritos? The Law Talk with my crew, we're here to laugh at you. We see you in court acting all tough. Your soul says citizen life must be so rough. Without getting into further details, there were drugs involved. I thought I was smoking crack, but it was just glue that dissolved. Oh man, I gotta get it together, because wow, that was messed up. And your honor, I have IBS, and I'm bleeding inside, and it's really been rough. The Law Talk with my crew, we're here to laugh at you. We see you in court acting all tough. Your soul says citizen life must be so rough.
And now Kinky Kelly is shacked up in bed with the fruit bowl. Then the cat jumped on his wiener and started causing trouble. Love exciting and new. We are and always will be the Law Talk with my crew. The Law Talk with my crew. We see you in court acting all tough. Your soul's a citizen, life must be so rough. Without getting into further details, there were drugs involved. I thought I was smoking crack, but it was just glue that dissolved. Oh man, I gotta get it together, because wow, that was messed up. And your honor, I have IBS, and I'm bleeding inside, and it's really been rough. The Law Talk with my crew, here to laugh at you. We see you in court acting all tough. Judge Simpson will tell you that being alone, we just show. Number one, know what I'm saying? Number one, know what I'm saying? We are the Law Talk with my crew. Number one, know what I'm saying? 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 Number one, know what I'm saying?
And do you have a job when you're not in custody?
Yes, I do have a job.
Where do you work?
Yeah.
Where do you work?
Oh, I work, I sell burritos sometimes.
All right, Deputy Laura, let's bring the jurors in.
All right, for the jury.
All right, everyone, please be seated. And state, call your next witness.
State calls Officer Roman Cabrera.
All right, can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth will help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you can lower your hand if you'll state your name for the record, please.
My name is Roman Cabrera Duran.
All right, and make sure you keep your voice up so that everyone's in here.
Okay. Good.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Cabrera, can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hello, I'm employed with the city of San Antonio. I've been on the police department just under 3 years.
Okay, I'm sorry, you say 23 years or 3 years?
Under 3 years.
Under 3 years.
Yes,
Okay, I
not
was gonna
22.
say. Like, very young looking for 23 years in the FAPD. All right, so I'll go ahead and ask you some of these questions about your training. Did you go through certain training to become a San Antonio police officer?
Yes, sir.
And please explain to the jury what type of training you went through, briefly, of like the academy, things that you had to go through in classes.
To be employed by the city of San Antonio, you go through 35 weeks at the San Antonio Police Academy. It's a lot of physical training, penal code, traffic law, civil law training as well. Just to come out here and do a proficient job for the citizens.
And how long is that training for?
It's 35 weeks.
How
35 weeks.
35 weeks. And then after the 35-week training, you have to go through other additional training, not training, but like a probationary period.
Yes, there's a 1 year probationary period. There's a 5-phase program where you're with a field training officer. There's 3 months where you're with a different officer every month. And then there's a 2-week evaluation period where you have a different evaluator each one of those weeks.
And you said you've been on the force just under 3 years.
Correct.
So, and then please tell the jury what type of duties or what your duties are right now.
I work for patrol, so I take everyday calls, any emergency calls, disturbance calls, family calls, accidents on the highway. Just anytime anybody calls 911 or the non-emergency number in my area, I'll be sent out there.
And what area do you work in currently?
I currently work North Patrol.
And I'm gonna go ahead, are you a Texas certified peace officer?
Yes, sir.
Let's go ahead and go to the date of July 22nd, 2022. Were you on duty at the early morning hours?
Yes, sir.
And in particular, I'm gonna be talking around 2:15, 2:20 a.m. in the morning.
Yes, sir.
And were you dispatched to a crash accident scene?
Yes.
And where was that crash located at?
It was on 281 northbound lanes, just north of the Stone Oak Parkway and TPC Parkway intersection.
And you say intersection, was it on the highway or was it on the access road?
It was on the highway.
On the actual highway. And this area, if you recall, was it under construction or was it just a highway without construction?
At the current time, it was under construction.
And after you got this call, did you proceed to that location?
Yes.
And what was you stated it was for accident or crash or wreck on the highway?
Correct.
And you have a co-ban, or what we used to call co-ban, or I guess a dash cam in your vehicle.
Yes.
I'm gonna show you what's been marked state exhibit. I'm gonna show you what's been marked state exhibit number 92. Where the sleeve has been, but inside that sleeve, there is a disc. Do you recognize that disc?
Yes, I do.
And how do you recognize that disc?
I put my name on there as well as my badge number, and I dated it when I reviewed the tape.
And what is on this disc?
My co-ban video, or the dash cam video of my vehicle.
The dash cam of your vehicle. And so that was the vehicle you were driving on July 22nd, 2022 at around 2 a.m.?
Correct.
And it's a fair and accurate depiction of what your dash cam caught that night.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would be asking to enter state exhibit number 92 into evidence or tender to defend any objections.
Yes, Your Honor, we would object to relevance, and may we approach?
Yes. I have you all step back. There's something that I need to view outside your presence. It'll probably take me about 10 minutes to view it. So remember my previous instructions. Rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to
All right,
discuss your
Secretary.
testimony with anyone, okay?
Annie is asking very nicely for you to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. And if you ignore Annie, you do realize that that is considered capital felony treason. Seriously.
There shall not be any cutting of trees. Don't cut any trees. I'll pass the order. No cutting of trees, no felling of trees in Patna number 12.
Oscar says hit like and subscribe. Well, and hit the bell notification. Thanks, Oscar. I always forget that.
at least I could justify it if you live 32 miles from Sacramento. And somehow justify and rationalize in my little brain here that somehow, some way, he doesn't think he's ever going to have to pony up on this one. But you live in Flat Rock.
Do this today, Your Honor. My health is in jeopardy right now.
What's up?
I have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and what's been going on is
Very stressful.
I'm bleeding inside, ma'am.
Anxiety leads to constipation.
like to appeal this to a much higher court because in recent days,
Can you please state your name for the record, ma'am? Peanut. Okay, thank you.
the wheels of justice are going to roll you right into the Wayne County Jail.
which is number one, wrong.
That really, really sucks. I mean, really, really.
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury.
I suppose.
Gonna stay out of Fulton County. Sir, the only reason you're gonna come to Fulton County is corridor to see your lawyer. Not even get gas. Can't even stop at Chick-fil-A. Stay.
Ma'am, are you a whore? Oh, man, I gotta get together.
All right, everyone, please be seated. And state it is your witness.
Yes, Your Honor, I believe that at this point, the state would offer state exhibit number 92, which is the dash cam video from Officer Chevrier's patrol car.
All right, 92 and 93.
Oh, the body, I'm sorry, I mean, we would be offering the body cam also of Officer Chevrier.
So you're offering state's exhibits. What are the exhibits number?
92. The COVID hand, I believe, is 92, Your Honor.
Yes.
Sorry.
All right, and defense, are you re-urging your objections to state's exhibit number 92?
Yes, Judge, we re-urge our previous objections.
All right, and that will be overruled. State's exhibit number 92 is admitted.
May I approach it to the hearing?
Yes.
And Judge, for purposes of this computer, this is, we have an exact copy on our hard drive that was copied from this disk. Can we go ahead and play the exact copy from state exhibit number 2 that's on the hard drive?
All right, you mean state's exhibit number 92?
Yes, did I say?
All right, yes. Defense, any objections to the playing of 92 from the state's hard drive?
No, Judge, it's the same copy from ours.
All right,
Okay.
you may proceed.
And Officer Chevrier, please, we're gonna go ahead and start playing this video from the beginning. Please explain to the jury what
Hell no.
we're seeing on the screen. What are we seeing on the screen?
So this is the video for it's called, well, we called it a Coban, but that's the brand of dash cam that the city used at the current time. This is me headed to the scene of the crash that I was dispatched to.
So this is at roughly 2:26:18. As far as you know, is that the accurate time?
Correct.
And it says a date of July 22nd, 2022. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And were you being dispatched somewhere?
Yes.
And where was that?
To a crash just north of TPC Parkway on 281.
We're going to go ahead and fast forward it here. Now, are you on 281 on this one?
Correct.
Oh, sorry. Give you about just a second. Okay, go ahead and play it and pause it now. Oh, there we go. We're pausing at 2:28:49. Can you read what that exit sign of the highway says?
Yes, it says Stone Oak Parkway and TPC Parkway.
And so that's an exit to the access road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and play it. Now we just saw some arrows on the roadway there. What is that indicating?
So at the time it was a 3-lane, and then right after the exit, it goes down into a 2-lane, it merges.
Thank you. Go ahead and play. Then what are we looking at here?
This is me approaching the traffic up ahead.
You notice in the middle of the highway there, is something over the highway, like a signage?
Yes.
And I'm gonna go ahead and come up there and point at that and tell me, do you know what that is? Above the area. Judge, may I step in?
Yes.
right up here across the highway.
Yes, those, I believe those are caution signs.
Caution, okay. Now, when you arrived at the scene, what did you see?
So Officer Morgan is on my right-hand side. I saw him trying to direct me with his flashlight, where to kind of position my car, as well as I saw the standstill traffic up ahead, and Mrs. Sabert's vehicle to the right-hand side.
I'm going to show you what's been marked state exhibit number 93. Can you please just go ahead and view that and tell me if you know, one, what that is?
Yes, that is my body cam video.
And is it a body cam from July 22nd, 2022,
Yes,
at roughly 2:20, 2:30 in the morning?
yes, sir.
And this portion or this body cam, does it show the scene that night
Yes,
that you arrived at?
yes,
And on this particular body cam, is it muted?
yes,
So there's no audio in it, is that correct?
correct,
And then, but it's just visual, is that correct?
correct.
Okay. And in lack of other certain portions removed, it's a fair and accurate copy of what was done that night by you.
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, state's asked to enter state exhibit number 93. Enter to discuss any objections.
Judge, we re-urge all of our previous objections.
All right, and that will be overruled.
And Judge, again, with this item, just like the last one, this state exhibit number 93 has been copied to our hard drive. We'd be asking if we can play it from our hard drive instead of from the CD. That's an exact copy.
Any objections?
No objections.
Thank you.
We're starting it from the beginning, but we're going to go ahead and fast forward it. Calls it at 2 minutes 30 or 2:30:03. This is from your body cam. What are you doing at this particular point?
Getting out of my vehicle and just making sure there's no incoming vehicles. I don't step into traffic.
And so which way is your body cam facing?
South.
South. And that's the roadway that you just drove down, is that correct?
Correct.
To get to where you parked your vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
And so at that point, you're facing south
Yes.
on the northbound lanes.
Correct.
Now, seeing that, tell the jury what they're looking at now.
So like I stated previously, Officer Morgan's seen on the right-hand side. He was kind of waving me down. The standstill traffic up ahead, as well as Miss Saber's vehicle is resting up against the right-hand side cement barrier.
Okay. So again, this is a body cam that we're watching the video, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And seem like it's all got, but can you show the jury where your body cam is if you had it on?
I don't have it on me today, but I would put it right here. It's on my front right pocket.
And so it'd be, how tall are you?
About 6'1".
6'1", so that'd be about maybe 4 feet high or so?
I would say so, yeah.
An estimate, right? Okay. So you're standing next to your car facing that way. And again, in the middle of that highway, I think on the other co-band or the dash cam, you stated that you saw some signage or something that was a warning signs that were across the road. Is that right?
Correct.
Do you see those in this picture?
Yes, I do.
And are they in the same place that they were in your tow van?
Yes, sir.
You can see them from your vehicle,
Yeah.
from right here.
Yes, sir.
And what are you doing now?
Running up to Miss Sabert's vehicle.
You're running up, and it looks like looks like several vehicles. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In line. Okay. And we stopped it at 2:30:57. We're going to start it back up here at 2:40:03. And this, just tell the jury briefly what we're seeing, possibly.
This is the fire department, EMS, loading up Miss Saber into a gurney.
And that's at 2:40:10. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'm starting at 2:48:16. And is this that same a fire or EMS that's taking the victim Alex Seibert to the hospital?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, I know there's portions that you stayed at the scene. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And were you the main handling officer of the scene?
No, I was not.
And who would that have been that night? Do you recall?
That's Officer Morgan.
Morgan.
Yes, sir.
And so he was the handling officer. And can you just tell I say handling officer, what do you call it when they're the main officer that has the right to report?
So a handling officer is essentially the officer on scene that has the report responsibility. If any arrests are made, he has that responsibility as well. And my duty was a cover officer, just ensure scene security, keep people separated, stuff like that.
Okay, and so again, you weren't the main officer involved in this. You were just you were an officer, support officer. Is that right?
Correct.
And so did you stay at the scene that night until the end of I guess the scene was ended? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you saw one of the individuals that was involved in the crash, and I actually forwarded this to 3:14:30. It looks like what's on the screen that we have right now. Go ahead and play it.
That is Miss Sabert's vehicle.
Okay, go ahead. All right. And did you see what that was?
Yes.
And whose purse was that?
Miss Sabert's purse.
Miss Seabert's purse. So I saw you put a cell phone, and the jury saw you put a cell phone in that purse. Whose cell phone was that?
Hers.
And where did you find that cell phone?
In the vehicle.
And what were your responsibilities that night?
To keep to stand by with the witness, keep everybody separated, as well as for a brief moment of time, the traffic that built up we had to relieve that without them running over the entire scene. So I did have a partake in clearing the traffic.
And what about the witnesses? Did you, at any time, did you speak with the witnesses or be around the witnesses or the people involved in the crash, rather?
Yes,
And was that one of your responsibilities?
yes,
And another one of your responsibilities, did you ever contact the family in this case that was the father and mother of Miss Sidebar?
Your Honor, we would object to relevance. May we briefly approach?
Yes.
And then, go ahead, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go ahead and start at 317:43. This is your body cam. And can you recognize which way you're looking? What direction on the highway? Are you facing north or south?
north, sir.
And there's an object in the middle of the road right there. Do you know what that object was?
It was a piece of the Miss Seabird's vehicle.
And that would be state exhibit number 71 up here on this easel. Is that Miss Siebert's vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And it's a portion of a bumper that is attached to that vehicle,
Yes, sir.
and it's in the middle of the road.
Yes, sir.
Three 1809. Which way are you facing now?
Southbound, sir.
Southbound. And what are you doing right now?
I am relocating this vehicle.
And why are you relocating that vehicle?
To be quite honest, I don't recall, but I was instructed to do so by my supervisor.
And how are you going forward or reversing?
I'm reversing.
So just to be clear to the jury, you're in the patrol vehicle that was facing the right direction. You put it in reverse and you're backing up on the highway.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, we stopped it at 319:45. We're starting it at 319:45 now. You'd reverse that vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
And you see patrol cars up there ahead, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In the middle of the highway, can you still see those warning signs that are across the highway?
Yes, sir.
From the vantage point of even after you backed out?
Yes, sir.
And you walk from your patrol car and pause it right now. 32119. Again, what is in the middle of the road right there?
The same piece of the bumper that we mentioned earlier from Miss Seabird's vehicle.
That came from her vehicle. That's in state 071.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and continue to play. And you know who that is right there?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
That is the defendant.
And is that person in the courtroom here today?
Yes, sir.
Please point him out and identify a item of clothing he's wearing.
He's sitting right over there. He's wearing a navy blue suit with a red tie.
Please let the record reflect that the officer has identified the defendant in this case. And go ahead and play. Pause it. At 321:59, what did the defendant in this case just do?
He took a photo of Miss Seabird's vehicle.
We're gonna go ahead and play it at 321:59. I'm gonna pause it at 322:54. It looks like there was a discussion there about something, and it looks like the officer, which officer was that?
That's Officer Lachuga.
And it looks like she was directing him, the defendant somewhere. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you spoke. I mean, did you speak with the defendant at times that night?
I believe this was my only interaction that I had directly with him.
Direct. And so, this scene. Well, what time did you recall leaving the scene, the actual scene?
Approximately, I would say around 6 a.m.
6 a.m. So the accident happened around 3:21, 3:22 a.m. So for at least from the accident to when you leave, I know you arrived after the accident, but it's a long time. Is that like roughly 3.5 hours or so?
Correct.
And did Mr. Castro, the defendant in this case, was he at the scene until you left?
Right before I left, he was taken somewhere else.
And then what about, do you know, Peter Stavanoff?
I believe it was the same case scenario as well.
What do you believe or do you know?
I know.
And was he the driver of the VW SUV?
Yes, yes, sir.
And then what about the HEV driver?
Same goes for him. He was there for the entirety of it as well.
So those three individuals were there the entire time.
Correct.
And of course, Ms. Seaver that was in that car, she got taken away from the scene around 2:48.
Yes, sir.
And do you know where she was taken?
To University Hospital.
And did you ever go to University Hospital?
Yes, I did.
And why did you go to University Hospital?
For the purse that was shown earlier, that I placed in my patrol vehicle, I went ahead and took it down to University to turn it into family members.
And did you hand that purse off to the family members?
Yes, sir.
I'll show you what's been marked stated, number 86, 87, 88, 89. Can you just look through those and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes, sir, I recognize them.
And what do you recognize those to be?
This is still photos of my body cam.
And is that from the body cam that we just saw on the screen?
Yes, sir.
And they're fair and accurate copy of that?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, at this time, it's safe to be asking industry exhibit number 86, 87, 88, 89, intended to defense for any objection.
I'm here, Diana. I'm here. Been here the whole time. This case is killing me. I thought it was going to be interesting. I apologize to you all. You never know.
Your Honor, objections cumulative. This is already, as this evidence has already been entered. on
Pacing is
file.
All right, if I could see State's
abysmal.
Exhibits 86 through 89, please.
May I approach?
Yes.
It's fine as a matter of law. It's horrible as a matter of YouTube.
All right, defense objections to 86, 87, 88, and 89 will be sustained.
Agreed.
We'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, defense, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Officer Chavarria. I'm Dottie Green. I'm one of Alexander Castro's attorneys.
The only thing that could make this worse would be a marriage.
So you mentioned separating witnesses on scene, and that was one of your goals.
Yes, sir.
So why is it important to separate witnesses?
So they don't communicate with each other and kind of cloud each other's version of events.
And we know that one of the witnesses on scene that you talked to was Mr. Paul Martinez.
Yes, ma'am.
And another one was Mr. Peter, I can't pronounce his last name, Stavin.
Yes, ma'am.
And you talked to both of these witnesses.
Yes, ma'am.
And you also had a brief interaction with Mr. Castro.
Yes,
I know. I
And that
love you for
interaction
that.
you spoke.
Seriously, you guys are the best.
Now, I understand that you're not the primary officer, so you didn't write the primary report, but did you write a supplement report?
No, I did not.
Why not?
To be quite honest with you, I couldn't tell you why. I just know I didn't.
No further questions, Your Honor, pass the witness.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Subject to recall, Your Honor, we still have to take them on the board.
All right, so if you'll just remain, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that will be our last witness for today because your next witness, how long did you say the next witness would take?
About 20 minutes, Judge.
All right, are you all okay with taking up the next witness? All right, so, excuse me, officer, if you could just make sure that you do not leave the courthouse
Yes,
just yet, and we'll call you back.
Okay.
All right, State, call your next witness.
State calls Detective Julio Forza.
And while he's
forget
making
about-
his way, if I can have both parties approach.
Yeah,
just
let's have a
briefly.
pointless half-hour sidebar. I was gonna say we can't have a witness without one.
All right, if you'll take a seat here, please.
Yes,
You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand, state your name for the record, please.
Julio Horta,
All right, state.
Detective Horta, who do you currently work for?
the San Antonio Police Department.
How long have you worked for SAPD?
I work for the San Antonio Police Department for over 14 years.
And what unit are you currently assigned to?
I'm currently assigned to the traffic investigation detail.
And what exactly do you do with the traffic investigation detail?
We investigate major crashes that involve serious bodily injury or fatalities.
How long have you been with the traffic investigation detail?
It's been over 2 years, just barely over 2 years.
Well, before you were with the traffic investigation detail, where were you?
Before that, I was working for the crisis intervention unit, which is basically family violence. But prior to that, prior to promoting, I worked for the DWI unit for over 7 years.
So as a part of the DWI unit, what specific training did you receive?
Well, we went through the field, certified through the field sobriety test, and then A-RIDE, which is advanced roadside impaired driving enforcement. Basically, what it tells you is there's this gap where the basic SFSTs tell you that there may be alcohol in somebody's system, but then there's also drugs that may impair that person. And then from there, I got certified as a drug recognition expert, which goes more into depth into the different drugs that people may take. Even some of them may be prescribed, but may affect the way a person safely drives a vehicle.
And is this training that you received, is it on top of what you received just to become a regular San Antonio Police Department officer?
Yes, sir.
And so are you also a certified peace officer?
Yes, I am.
So I want to take you back to July 22nd of 2022. Were you working with the TID unit at that time?
Yes, sir. I was working with the traffic investigation detail unit.
And on that night, how many incidents did you have to respond to as a part of the TID unit? Do you remember?
That night, I want to say about 2 to 3 call outs that we had that night. So we were very busy.
So what happens whenever you receive multiple call outs?
Well, we basically we don't go back to the office. We're just jumping from crashing to crashing to crashing. So,
and do you have any way to prioritize which crash scenes you go to?
it will be depending on the severity of the crash. If there's any serious bodily injury or anybody involved in the crash sustains life-threatening injuries, then that would take priority over somebody that where there's no risk that someone may die.
Do you recall, as being a part of the TID unit, that you received notice of an accident that happened on 281?
Yes, I remember that night I was working along with Detective Bianca Martinez, and we have received a call from a North Patrol officer stating that there was a crash on the highway, but at the time he wasn't sure about the injuries on that crash. So she had asked the officer to give us a call back with an update, so we knew if there were any life-threatening injuries, so that way we could prioritize that call. But we didn't get a call for that. He didn't call back.
And did you eventually make your way to the scene out on 281?
Yes, sir.
How much time do you remember? How much time had passed between when you guys got notice of the call and when you went out there?
I know by the time we got back to the office, it was almost 5 in the morning when we realized we had to go out there. I'm not too sure about the time the call came in, but I'm going to say at least over 4 hours.
And when you arrived at that scene, what were your duties?
I helped out. I assisted with painting road evidence, basically just with a paint stick that we use. We mark tire marks or where the final rest for the vehicles was. And then at one point, I was asked by Detective Martinez to check the eyes of the defendant.
Should we approach originally? Yes. we're gonna stop testimony at this time, at this point. I'm gonna have you all come back tomorrow at 9:30. There should not be any problem with parking because the number of jurors that were called up previously, that's not what happens on Fridays. So we'll start at 9:30 again. Don't report inside the courtroom. Your
the hell
report to the
happened
jury
there?
room. Do not think about this case whatsoever. Don't consider it at all. You're only allowed to concentrate on this case when you're inside the courtroom. No investigation, no watching of anything. Everything that you need to know about this case has come from inside this courtroom and nowhere else. Does everyone understand? All right, so I'll see you all tomorrow at 9:30. Everyone, please rise for the jurors. Everyone, please be seated. And Maria, if you'll make sure that this is notated, that this is outside the presence of the jury. And the questioning that's going to be continued now is that it relates to the court's motion in limine with regards to intoxication. So state, if you'll
makes
ask
sense.
those questions, and defense, let the court know if you have any objections and if you think that's in violation of the court's motion in
Okay, this
limine.
makes sense.
All right, state.
Detective Horta, did you perform HGN on the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Sorry, I'm trying to lower this. I doing it earlier.
Can you ask that question one more time, please?
Yes, ma'am. Detective Horta, did you perform the HGN test on the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And when you performed the HGN test, what clues did you see?
I only saw two clues: the lack of smooth pursuit.
And at that,
lack of smooth pursuit.
Lack of smooth pursuit.
Smooth.
and just based on seeing those two clues, were you able to make a determination on if the
She knows
defendant was
Spanglish.
intoxicated at that time?
She lives in Texas.
All right, no, I'm gonna hear the answer and then we're outside the presence of the jury, then I'll hear your objection. Yes.
Yes, at the time he was not intoxicated.
Seeing those two clues, what did that indicate to you?
That he had been drinking alcoholic beverages.
All right, so defense, I will hear your objections.
Judge, my objection is that.
And I'm sorry, before I hear your objections, do you have any questions with regards to that point of the officer? All right, so if you can ask whatever questions you want to ask, and then I'll hear what everyone's objection is in the state's response.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Did you write a report in relation to this test that you performed on Alex?
The only report I wrote was during an internal affairs investigation that was conducted way after the crash.
So at the time, you didn't contemporaneously record your findings about any tests.
I'm sorry?
At the time, you didn't write a report.
Yes, that is correct, sir.
And you say that you saw two clues.
Yes, sir.
And that's lack of smooth pursuit.
Yes, sir.
But you didn't write a report.
That is correct.
And you're not telling the court which eye you're talking about, because they do three tests, each one on both eyes, right?
Yes, sir.
So your opinion was that Mr. Castro, based on that one test, that was the only test you did?
The horizontal gaze nystagmus, I checked for all six clues. He only had two.
So you did the whole test?
Yes, sir, I did.
You didn't conduct any other SFSTs?
No, sir. Since there was only two clues, there was no point in offering the other two.
And you said at the time that you did this, that your opinion was that Mr. Castro, that the only evidence that you got from that is possible consumption of alcohol.
Well, I review a little clip from Officer Chavarria's body-worn camera, and based on that, obviously, I refreshed my memory. And I did ask him how much he had to drink tonight that day, and he said 4 to 5 beers.
I know, so that's not what I asked you. I just said that, and I can't remember what I asked you now. But your conclusion was that the only thing you can tell this court was from doing that test is that he possibly
It was
consumed
responsive
alcohol
to what you asked him, dummy.
at that point. You can't say he's intoxicated right then.
That is correct.
And there's no way from getting, and you'd agree with me, right, from your training experience, you've done this a lot, you've had a lot of training, that 2 clues on the HGN is not enough to continue an investigation. It's not the decision point, right?
That is correct. If we need at least four of the clues to indicate that person is intoxicated at the time.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. And even if you got 4 clues, that doesn't mean that they are intoxicated, right?
Well, based on the HGN, if you get 4 clues, there's a high possibility that you're intoxicated.
Well, do you know what that is? What high possibility that is?
I know the most recent study was, according to that, it was 88%. It's four or more clues. So 4 or 6 clues is 80. That's what I read.
77%, right? So it's 77%.
It's 88%.
Well, 77, 8%. It doesn't mean they're
The defense is
intoxicated.
trying to
That's
keep
4 clues.
out
But do
this
you recall
evidence.
telling Detective Martinez at the scene that you thought he's no longer intoxicated, but he was earlier?
If I recall saying that,
Mhm.
I don't recall. I may have said that he may have been going down because based on what he stated that he had drank the amount that he drank of alcohol.
But
Well,
that
yeah.
would just be speculation, right?
Unless he's drinking at the
Could
scene,
you rephrase your
he's
question?
going
Well,
down.
that'd be a guess.
Well, once again, based on the report that I wrote, the supplement that I did for internal affairs,
Have copies of it.
All right, so everyone, this is the court's ruling, and this was the court's ruling before. The state's witness, my understanding, is not coming to testify that Mr. Castro was intoxicated. Has that changed?
No, Judge.
All right, so the witness will not be testifying that he thought Mr. Castro was intoxicated because nothing has been presented to the court for this witness to testify that Mr. Castro was intoxicated. So that will not be allowed. All right. The questions with regard to, did he do field sobriety tests on Mr. Castro? That will be allowed. But any conclusions that somebody may have that he was previously intoxicated and he's currently not intoxicated, that was the court's ruling on the motion in limine. Does everyone understand the court's ruling on the motion in limine?
Yes, Judge.
All right. And is anyone planning on going outside of that and think that this witness should be testifying to something other than the parameters that have been set by the court within the motion in limine?
No, Judge. No, Judge.
All right. So my understanding, we can go off the record. My understanding is he's going to testify if he did field sobriety tests. He's going to testify to what tests he did. Court is going to allow him, if he did an HGN, the court is going to allow him to say he did an HGN in defense. You can cross-examine him on the HGN, what he did, what he didn't do. If he had him do a walk-in turn, which it doesn't appear that he did, if he did, he would be allowed to testify to that. The only thing this witness will not be allowed to testify to is whether or not he thought Mr. Castro was intoxicated. That was the court's motion in limine. That's where we are. Any confusion?
I
Yes.
got it.
Well, Judge, the only thing I just want to clarify is just that when he did the HGN, again, he did not believe at that time when he did HGN that he was intoxicated. It's just to clarify, just to. That he could testify to that.
All right, so you don't want him to even testify that when he did the HGN, he didn't think he was intoxicated.
The way that it's the way it's asked, Judge, at that time kind of suggests that, well, he's not now, but the suggestion is he was, and that was the.
All right, you're allowed to testify that an HGN was done, if it was done. You're allowed to say if you think there were 2 clues, 3 clues, 4 clues, whatever. You're allowed to say how many clues you thought it was, the end. Not that you previously thought he was intoxicated or any words to the effect of intoxication. Okay? Yes.
Judge, would he be able to testify that due to those two clues, it indicated that there was alcohol consumption?
If you all lay the foundation, the court will hear that. He's just not allowed to say that he thought, or if he did think that Mr. Castro was intoxicated, he's not allowed to say those words because that's a legal conclusion. But as far as, you know, what do the clues
Indicate?
Yes.
Judge, sorry, just
Yes.
interjected, but I just want to make sure that goes for both sides, that defense is not going to be stepping behind us and stating that. oh,
Well,
he's
here's the
not
thing.
intoxicated.
If anybody opens the door, that door will be open. And once that door is open, if people want to walk through the door, they can walk through the door. They won't have to climb through windows. They can just go straight through the door. So everyone knows, y'all are attorneys, you understand the court's ruling. Both sides have told me that you understand my ruling. So don't go opening doors. Don't be tiptoeing through a door. And if you think you're about to tip through a door that you shouldn't be tiptoeing through, ask to approach and I'll let you know. So he's not going to be testifying that he thought Mr. Castro was intoxicated, was recently intoxicated or coming down from intoxication. But he is allowed to testify to whatever clues he saw and whatever indicators of alcohol he thought he saw. He's allowed to testify to that. He's just not allowed to say the words intoxication or I thought he was intoxicated or he was coming down from being intoxicated. Any confusion on the court's motion in limine?
No, Your Honor.
No, you're not.
All right, so we're going to have you come back at 9:30. Rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to speak to other people about this case except for attorneys for the state or the defense. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. And could you have your other officer retake the stand?
My God, the only finally something marginally interesting occurred. I was thinking the same thing as the prosecutor, though. He's gonna say all that, and then the jury's gonna say, "Oh, well, they tested him, and the officer didn't say he was intoxicated, so he
And
must have
everyone
been sober."
tomorrow will also go over the jury charge.
That
Yes,
is
Your Honor.
what they will take from it. I know juries, especially if you leave it open for the defense to argue that. But she was already on top of that. Like if you want to make that argument, then he can come back and you know, now you've opened the door and then the officer cannot offer his opinion on it.
You have audio?
All right, you may be seated.
Yeah.
I have a hard drive that has it.
Okay.
But the ones that are seen.
What can you do in a second?
All right. All right, you're still on the oath. Could you restate your name, please?
My name is Roman Chavarria Duran.
And for the record, this testimony is outside the presence of the jury. Defense, you had some questions for the officer outside the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
And it's the court's understanding this is as it relates to any statements that may have been made by your client?
Yes, Your Honor. This is to go towards establishing the custodial interrogation of Mr. Castro, along with the statements we've already heard from Officer Morgan. So we'd like to establish that with this officer and again request that any statements Mr. Castro gave and evidence that are derived from it be suppressed.
All right, and so that the record is clear, statements that are alleged to have been made by Mr. Castro after Mr. Castro asked, and I'm summarizing, asked, I guess, could he go to his wife or have his wife pick him up? None of those have come in yet.
Correct, Judge.
All right. So State, are you planning on offering any statements beyond that point?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Okay, Officer Chavarria, so you arrived. I'm sorry, before we go on, just officer.
No, this is outside the presence of the jury, and this is the defense's witness for their hearing on whether or not the statement that their client made was voluntary or not.
Officer Chavarria, you watched your body cam prior to today,
Yes, ma'am.
and you remember that you arrived on scene around 2:30 in the morning.
Yes, ma'am.
And this would have been about maybe 10 minutes or so after the accident
Of,
involving Mr. Castro.
yes.
And when you arrive at 2:30 in the morning, how long in total is Mr. Castro there?
Like I stated, he left probably shortly before I left, so approximately around till 6 a.m.
So this would have been about, I guess, 3.5 hours
Yes,
at
ma'am.
least.
Yes, ma'am.
And what reasonable suspicion did you have to keep him there for those 3.5 hours?
So I stood with the HEB driver, primarily for most of the time being. But we were just holding down the scene for traffic investigations to come out.
How many officers were on scene?
Down at the crime scene, I would say 4.
And do you remember, so from your understanding, was there any reasonable suspicion to keep him there?
Are you saying reasonable suspicion of a crime?
Yes.
To my understanding, no.
And I want to play a portion of when you and I believe Officer maybe Rodriguez speak to Mr. Castro. Your Honor, may I publish something that's not in evidence only for the purposes of this hearing?
Well, so that the record can be clear, it'll need to be marked. Otherwise, there is no true record for the appellate courts.
Judge, I don't have a copy with me. It's going to be the same video. I can burn the copy today and provide it tomorrow in court. That's okay.
Yes, that will be okay with the court reporter. So what do you want to label it for purposes of this hearing?
Can we label it as Defense A?
All right, so this will be defense exhibit number A.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. We are starting to play in portion 3, time 3:21:31. We say that number again? Yes, 3:21:31.
Deputy Laura, you let the court know that they can leave.
You want to take a seat in one of our vehicles? Oh, want to take a seat in our vehicle? No. I mean, I was just sitting there over there, like, minding my business. I hate that, like, over there, my phone.
Okay, and pausing that Defense A at 3:23:06. Officer, what we've just heard is while you were present, another officer is telling Mr. Castro that he can't touch certain things on scene
Correct.
and that he needs to go wait in the patrol vehicle.
Not that he needs to go wait in a patrol vehicle.
What was the,
Understanding.
what did you hear that?
I had offered him if he wanted to take a seat in a patrol vehicle.
And what did she tell him?
To be quite honest, I didn't really pay attention to what he said.
I think she said something along the lines of, you can sit in the car or go sit in the car and wait for your wife.
Okay.
Is that something along those lines?
If it's on video, then yes, that's what she said.
So at that point, she is directing him on what to do. She's telling him what to do.
I would say so, yes.
And his movements are obviously being restricted, as in where he can and can't be is being limited.
Yes, ma'am.
And as we discussed, there's about 7 officers on scene at this point. Is that what you had said? About 7 officers?
I said 4.
I'm sorry. Okay, right here. So there's 4 officers and they're surrounding Mr. Castro.
At this point, it's just us 3. The other officer would be Officer Morgan, and he was further down in the scene at this current time.
So 3 officers are surrounding him, talking to him, and you guys all have your weapon on you, on your side.
Correct.
And it's clear that he was not free to leave the scene.
Correct.
And were you aware that his wife was there trying to pick him up?
Yes, I was made aware of that.
And he did not have the option to leave with his wife.
Correct.
And he was required to stay there even 1 hour after the accident.
Correct.
And we also hear that you ask him if you're questioning him, asking if he's the driver of that truck.
Correct.
And let's say there's a traffic violation that's committed. You pull over a vehicle and you want to investigate them. What do you need to keep them there for that initial investigation?
I'm just gonna object the relevance to these proceedings.
Sustained.
Do you need reasonable suspicion to keep someone to investigate?
I'm just gonna object for the reason for this.
Sustained.
In this case, you did not have reasonable suspicion to keep Mr. Castro there.
I'm just gonna object.
That'll be overruled.
From what you were aware of, you did not have reasonable suspicion yourself to keep him there.
Correct.
Thank you, officer. No further questions, Judge. That completes our voir dire.
All right, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
One, were you the officer that was in charge of handling Mr. Castro?
No,
So you weren't the one that was gonna decide whether he was being arrested or not arrested?
that is correct.
You were just there to maintain a scene, is that correct?
Correct.
For TID to show up?
Correct.
And is it uncommon for you to be out at a scene for long periods of time, especially when there's a fatality, accident, or crash?
No, it is not uncommon.
So it could be 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Have you been at a scene for longer than 5 hours?
Yes, I have.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
All right, any further questions?
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And is this witness excused now?
Yes, Judge.
All right, you're excused. Remember my ruling. The rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone. You're only allowed to speak to attorneys for the state of the defense while this case is still pending. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you may step down. All right, court will hear argument.
Do not go on loud.
Yes, Your Honor.
And
Under any circumstances.
nobody ever really said what statements that you were seeking to exclude.
Your Honor, at this point, it's clear that Mr. Castro is under custodial interrogation.
So what statements are you seeking to exclude that were made?
So we're seeking to exclude statements that were made after this point that it's clear, and those statements are going to be him saying that he consumed 4 beers
Yep.
and him signing a consent to search his vehicle form.
And it hasn't been, it wasn't asked of any officers. It hasn't been submitted into evidence. So, state, are you stipulating that after 3/23/06, is this when the statements were made?
I believe, Your Honor, some statements have already come in of Mr. Castro from Officer Morgan's body cam, so it's new in that category already. But there is some information or statements that do come in later.
All right, so I'm specifically focusing on the statements where defense is saying Mr. Castro stated he had consumed 4 beers and the consent to search the vehicle.
The 4 beers has already come in through Officer Morgan.
No, it hasn't. No, not through his body cam.
Oh, he testified, I'm sorry, he testified through, I mean, that's what I was talking about, testimony or any evidence that came in. Officer Morgan testified to that. And then, so that's the 4 beers. Detective Orta that they just had on the stand, or we just had on the stand, did say to them that Mr. Castro had mentioned he drank 4 to 5 beers that night. So that'd be a conflicting statement that the individual made that night. And then there is, coming down to consent form, Your Honor, the consent is not affected by the fact he was in custody or not. He wasn't being released at that moment. He was actually released.
All right, so here's the thing. There's some more things that need to be done. One, the consent to search the vehicle, I'll need to see that form. With regards to the consumption of alcohol, when it was said, I do believe there's already been testimony that Mr. Castro consumed alcohol, but the statement that the defense is saying Mr. Castro is alleged to have made that he consumed 4 beers from his mouth, the court hasn't heard that. So what the court is trying to discover so that I can make a ruling is that his stating that he has consumed 4 beers or 5 beers, did that come after this 3/23/06 footage?
Sorry, Judge, you're sort of getting the part mixed up here. Because of the way we're at, because one detective, Detective Martinez in particular, will be talking about from this individual that he tells her on body cam that he drank 4 beers. So that has not even been offered into evidence yet on the stand. She will not be testifying until tomorrow.
Okay.
Detective Orta could testify to the fact of 4 to 5 beers, which he has not testified. Well, as of right now, to that, he's on the stand.
All right, so then here's the thing. Defense, please be seated. With regards to your motion to have certain statements inadmissible, at this point, it's really not ripe. And let me just tell you why it's not ripe. It's not ripe because the person who is supposed to have heard, and I don't know anything about your case. I don't know the facts of the case. I don't know who said what to whom. But the person who I need to hear from would be the person that he made the statements to. So when were the statements made from your client that he consumed 4 beers or 5 beers? What officer was that given to? And once I know that, and I've already had from this officer's testimony saying that you can go sit in the car and wait for your wife. I have that. But now I need whomever that officer was with regards to the statements, because I still won't know if it's admissible or not, because I don't know if there was something else that was said before he gave that statement. I don't know if he said, you know what, it's fine. I don't need an attorney. I don't even know if somebody read him his rights because nothing's been presented to me. So some more witnesses need to be called to find out who is alleged that he made the statement to. And then I will make an informed ruling on whether or not those statements that are attributed to him are admissible or not. But at this point in time, there's more information that needs to be given to the court.
Yes, Your Honor. Understood. And if I can just briefly answer that question, it's going to be Detective Martinez. and that's going to be about 2 hours and 40 minutes after this this interaction at around 6:12 a.m. So we just wanted to build that because we do believe that he was under arrest at this or being unlawfully detained, and then it becomes prolonged. So now that the court's seen this portion, we'll continue with that argument.
All right, and then you all can continue with that argument once I hear from the detective and we can see when this occurred, okay?
Your Honor, is it clear that the motion to suppress at this time is denied?
No, I mean, it would have to be because I don't have any information. You all need to bring in whomever it was he gave the statement to, because I can't say if it's voluntary or not, because I don't know, because I don't have the witness who he's alleged to have made the statement to. I can't say if his movement was restricted when he made the statement, because that person whom he made the statement to is not present. The fact that you have this video where somebody tells him you can sit in the car and wait for your wife, I still don't have the statement. I don't know any circumstances surrounding the statement. So there's nothing for me to rule on because nothing's been presented.
Yeah,
So
sure.
once that's presented, I will certainly make a ruling and I'll take that up at that time.
Understood.
Now, tomorrow, this is what we're going to do. Everyone needs to be here at 9. State, will the vehicles be able to be here at 9?
As far as I've been informed, they should be here by 8:30.
All right, so then what we'll do is defense. We will walk with your client. The state will be present. We will walk down there. The jurors will not walk down there. However, this is an issue, right? Deputy Laura does have the phone numbers of the jurors. I haven't made a decision on whether or not I'm going to allow those vehicles to come in. So we have two options. One, the jurors can be called and we can have them go through the back way. Or two, state if you can make sure that the vehicles are covered with the tarp that they were previously covered with. All right, so.
It was plastic, so it's like plastic.
All right. So that needs to be covered, or there needs to be some board up until the court makes a ruling on whether or not it's admissible. So is that
good
doable?
Lord.
We don't, well, I guess the answer to that, we don't know at this moment, Judge.
All right, so if there's somebody you can call, because if it is doable, but it's going to make us start the day later rather than earlier, you can let us know now. That way we can tell the jurors not to come in till a specific time.
We've
Oh,
been contacted.
sweet Jesus, we're gonna fight about this for
I
hours.
just asked Daniel if we have a phone number, and we don't have a phone number. And
But I'm sure upstairs, there has to be some sort of tarp or something that people put up to just.
say yes for one,
Okay.
but in this case, we have 3. So that's my concern, Judge.
All right, because the jurors will, they're going to be back at 9:30. So the jurors have been arriving. If I tell them to be here at 9, they've been arriving at 9. So since I'm telling them to be here at 9:30, they'll probably start arriving by 9:15. Okay? And the only way this will be an issue, if I make the decision that they're not allowed to view it and they view it, then that will be an issue. So let's not make that an issue. All right. Is there anything else?
Not from the statement.
All right. So we're going to be here tomorrow at 9. Try to be here a little bit early. And that way, defense, you all can make sure that everything is covered up the way you would like it to be covered up. And then we're going to stay late on Friday to go over the jury charge. Anything else?
Nothing from the statement.
Right. Okay, we're off the record. And I really don't like depending on if we end early tomorrow, I really don't like for jurors to deliberate on a Friday. I'm not saying that people won't take the amount of time that needs to be taken, but I just find that it's better not to have jurors deliberating on Friday unless both parties insist that they do.
We defer to the court, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
Nothing from defense, Judge.
All right. I will see y'all tomorrow. Make sure that all of the exhibits are labeled properly.
Oh, good Lord. Well, there you have it. That damn near killed me. Oh, I don't know if I can do it. I'll probably just check in on the trial tomorrow. I don't know, because they're gonna do. I can see what they're doing. It's weird. I've never seen this come up before. So a lot of times, if you have evidence that's big, especially cars, could be buildings, other things like that. You'll do what's called a site inspection. They'll take all the jurors and they'll stick them in a bus and they'll drive them out to some place and make them look at something. In this case, apparently they're gonna drag these wrecks to the courthouse parking lot, leave them out in front. It's a real Texas kind of deal. This crap wouldn't happen in Cook County, I'll tell you that. You leave that out there. First of all, those cars would be scrapped in about 12 seconds. Second of all, there's no space to be leaving smashed up cars around outside a courthouse in Chicago. They'd leave them in the yard somewhere, and if you're going to drag them to see if the jury would have to go over there for, like, it's like you get a little jury field trip, and then you come back. So the thing the judge is saying is, I want you to drag this crap over here so we can look at it. Okay, look, if it was small, if it was documents, you would have an in-camera inspection. You'd bring all the evidence back into chambers, and then you talk about it with the attorneys, and then it would be out of presence of the jury. You can't do that with cars. So she's like, drag them down here, but cover that crap up, because I don't want the jurors looking at it, walking in. And then I say, nope, I don't want the jurors, whatever. I'm convinced that the jurors shouldn't see the vehicles for whatever reason. It's more, yeah, the defense is going to argue that it's more prejudicial than probative in some form. Okay, fine. But that ruling doesn't mean squat if there's a gaper's delay walking into the courthouse for looking at all the smashed vehicles. This is just getting weird. This is just getting weird. Okay, so I don't know. I'll probably catch up with this thing, but I don't know. I'll look in to see if something interesting is happening. But if they're slapping around, making legal arguments about whether or not the jurors can look at the cars, and then taking the jurors out to look at the cars, we're talking about hours of BS here. More to the point, we're talking about hours of BS that's not interesting to stream. Now, if they were going to vlog it, that'd be different. If I sent my flamingos down there and did a little production, it'd be fine. It'd be very entertaining. But the way they're going to do it is we're going to look at the ceiling fan in the courtroom for 3.5 hours while they diddle around in the parking lot. How the hell did I get roped into this stuff? What did I do? What sin did I commit in a past life? I'm aware of several in this life. But I don't know what I did in past lives, because that's usually what gets the blame in these scenarios. I don't know. I'll check in. I want to see the end. I want to see the closing arguments and the verdict. I don't guarantee you anything else. It was abysmal today. Although the very end of it, this guy, I didn't understand why they stopped, but then once they started talking, I understood immediately. So, she wanted to hear that testimony because they had objections, and she wanted to hear what the testimony was going to be so she could rule on the objections, but you can't do that. Sort of an offer of proof kind of scenario. You can't do that in front of the jury, because then they already heard the damn testimony now, haven't they? Then you can't unring the bell. So that's why we had this little kabuki this afternoon. That makes sense to me. That was the only that was the best part of the day. That was the best part of the day. Oh, yeah. It is an interesting trial, but the pacing and the breaks And look, they're doing it right. They're conducting a courtroom. They're not trying to entertain us. Because in terms of trying to entertain us, they are failing miserably. In terms of conducting a trial, they're doing fine. Everyone's doing okay. Everyone's really doing just fine. So their priorities are in the right place. But damn, they're boring. All right. Seriously, thanks for coming out. And for anybody who endured this, I know you love me. I really do. I appreciate it. I was I was looking at the chat during this, and I'm like, these are my ride or dies here. Because this trial is a dragon. All right. We'll figure something out tomorrow. Like I said, at a minimum, I'll try to get the closing arguments and the verdict. I never get the verdict, but I'll try. And she's already talking about, she doesn't want them to deliberate on Friday, and they're going to work late on Friday. Come on. But she knows what witnesses are coming up, and I'm sure her assessment is correct. So that's where we are. All right. Thank y'all for coming on. I appreciate it. I'll see y'all soon.